Hey everybody, David here, and today I want to do my list of the top 10 movies of 2019 that I really enjoyed. Now, there's no right or wrong answers in this list because it's my list. This is what I think, and I want to share that with anybody that's interested in knowing what was David's favorite movies of the year. Now, if you want, you can share your list in the comment section below because I'm always interested to see what other people put on their lists. And yeah, let's get right to it. Now, I just want to say that, man, there were a lot of movies I really enjoyed this year that did not make my list. So just for a few honorable mentions, I had to leave out movies like Knives Out. I really liked Godzilla King of the Monsters, Hobbs and Shaw, John Wick Chapter 3, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Ford versus Ferrari. I enjoyed Dumbo, the remake of Dumbo this year. Marriage Story, which I saw on Netflix, was actually a really good film. I didn't know how much I was going to enjoy that one, but turned out to be a really surprising film that definitely will make people cry. And then Fighting with My Family. I'm not even a wrestling fan, and I enjoyed this movie called Fighting with My Family. It was a really heartwarming, nice story about two siblings that get into wrestling and at some points get at odds with each other. Yeah, so those were some honorable mentions that did not make my list, but I thought were really good movies this year. Unfortunately, there were 10 other films that I felt I really connected to a little bit more. I enjoyed a little bit more. They might not be the most perfect films, but sometimes movies that you really enjoy don't always have to be perfect. Some of them could be, but there's always others that might not be perfect, but there's still something about them that really gravitates you. Maybe you enjoy that franchise, or maybe there's just something about that story that speaks to you. I don't know, but these are the 10 that I really enjoyed the most this year. Surprisingly, with number 10, I have Terminator Dark Fate. I don't think I had a Terminator movie in my top 10 for a long time. So to have Dark Fate here was surprising to me when I was organizing my list. Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie a lot. I thought it was cool seeing Linda Hamilton back as Sarah Connor, and of course Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator himself. I thought the movie was a lot of fun, but it brought back that feel to me of the first two Terminator films, which I really enjoy. Obviously, a lot of people can agree that the first two Terminator movies are the best, and I feel this movie represented those first two Terminators the best. I'm kind of sad that the movie didn't do better in theaters. It's not like Terminator Genesis, where I enjoyed that movie too, but I wasn't sad that it didn't do so well. It wasn't actually surprising to me. This one, I was kind of sad about it because I would have preferred a sequel to this one more than any other Terminator that came out after Terminator 2. So, and that's coming from someone that enjoyed all the Terminator movies. So that must be saying a lot. Moving on to my number 9 movie on my list, I have Shazam. Shazam was a really fun movie this year. And, it didn't do gangbusters, but it did well enough to warrant not just a spin-off with Black Adam, The Rock, but also a sequel is coming out in 2022. So I'm happy that's happening. And Zachary Levi was great, as well as Asher. I think his name was Asher. Aston or something. I forgot the kid's name. But the kids in the movie in general were great in this movie. And so, yeah, definitely looking forward to a sequel. Number 8 on my list, I have Aladdin. Aladdin, I know a lot of people are getting sick of these Disney live-action remakes. I'm still enjoying them, and I feel that Aladdin was one of my favorite ones, easily. I think my favorite one is still The Jungle Book, but Aladdin would probably come in second for me. I really felt it balanced the things of nostalgia right, while adding some new elements to the film that made it stand a little bit from the original animated film. Of course, the animated stuff is still going to be the better things, the better versions of those stories. But I still really enjoyed Aladdin. I've already watched it a couple of times, and funny enough, The Lion King and Aladdin were the two movies I was looking forward to live action remakes of. I thought The Lion King was going to be the better film, and guess what? It did not make my top 10. Aladdin did, and I think that speaks volumes for me. I still enjoyed The Lion King, but obviously not enough to make it near my top 10. But Aladdin, if you haven't seen it because you're one of these people that are getting tired of the live action remakes, I would recommend this one. A lot of people were actually a little bit more favorable to this one than most of the other live action remakes. So I know it got mixed reviews from critics, but I've heard more critics say more positive things about this one than a lot of the others. So moving on to number 7, I have The Irishman. The Irishman is Martin Scorsese's newest film, and look, I really think The Irishman is a great film. And if you really like Martin Scorsese's work, you kind of know what to expect. It's a little bit more like The Goodfellas than a lot of his other movies. More similarities to that, I mean, in terms of tone. It is a little bit longer than it needs to be, but for the most part, it's still a really good Martin Scorsese directed film. And it's great to see Robert De Niro take center stage again. He's been doing a lot of supporting roles in recent years, and once he gets back, and you can tell he's really back in on this. It's great to see Joe Pesci again, playing a different type of role. It's not a role he's usually, he's always the foul-mouthed, loud character. In this movie, it was really cool seeing him play a more calmer character. Al Pacino was great in it as well, and the rest of the supporting cast was also great. So, moving on to number 6, I have Spider-Man Far From Home. I know Martin Scorsese's yelling at his computer right now saying, I can't watch this idiot anymore, but I'm sorry, Martin. The superhero movies, they speak to me a little bit more than gangster films. Because I think we always need a hero to look up to, and Tom Holland is that hero. He is a great Spider-Man, probably my favorite. This was almost the last movie of Spider-Man in the MCU, so I'm glad Disney and Sony worked things out and we're going to get another movie with him. But if this was the last one, well, then I would have been angry because, man, I want another one, especially the way this cliffhanger left us in the end credit scene. It sets up so much for the MCU on what to look forward to from these characters in this world, and especially with Spider-Man. I gotta know what happens next. So, Tom Holland can play Spider-Man forever as long as it's in the MCU. Moving on to number 5, I have Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. This is obviously the last of the Skywalker saga for now, I think. I think one day we'll get back to it. But right now, they're going to give it like a 10 to 15 year rest when Daisy Ridley is ready to come back. This was, I saw it the first time, and it probably would have ended up a little bit lower on my list. But when I saw it the second time, I liked it a little bit more. So, see, sometimes when you see a movie for a second or third time, your mind changes on it. And for me, I got a clearer idea of what this movie was and how I felt about it. And it's a nice conclusion to the Skywalker saga. It's still not my favorite of the new trilogy. I think I still put The Last Jedi first, and then Force Awakens, and then this one still last. But it's still a really good film conclusion. One that kind of has some holes here and there, but I mean, like, my number 1 movie on this list also has some holes, but because the story is so good, I forgive it. And it's kind of like with this one. I really enjoy the Star Wars saga overall, and to have a somewhat conclusion, if this is the last one, then I think it's pretty much satisfying. I think the characters that we've grown to know in this new trilogy and the old trilogy all come together in this one, and there's some really sweet moments for fans. So, Moving on to number 4. This is a surprising one. Jojo Rabbit. The more movies I saw after I saw Jojo Rabbit at TIFF, the more I kind of had a feeling that this was going to be in my top 5 still. And I'm happy to see it's still there. This is a really enjoyable film that I hope a lot of people get a chance to see. I know you see Hitler there, so you think, oh, what is this movie? It has Hitler in it. And Taika Waititi, who is directing this movie, who also directed Thor Ragnarok and The Hunt for the Wilder People, he directs this movie, and it's a really charming, sweet film. Believe it or not. I know Hitler's there, but Hitler is more of a goof, an idiot than anything else. It's more of a satire of the Germans during World War II than anything else. And believe me, they don't respect Hitler. So I think if you are... This is not a movie that I don't think you'll be offended by. As a matter of fact, I think there's a really nice story and message there to it. Especially with what's going on in today's society. I think this is a movie people should check out. And I'll leave it at that. So, this is definitely in my top 4. I'm looking forward. Taika Waititi is definitely getting up there as one of my all-time favorite directors. If he's not in the top 5 yet, he's definitely climbing his way up in the top 10 right now. With that being said, let's move on to number 3. I have Toy Story 4. A Pixar movie had to make it up here, and I'm glad Toy Story 4 was that movie. Obviously not the best Pixar movie of all time, and I wouldn't say the best Toy Story movie of all time. For me, Toy Story 3 is still the best, but Toy Story 4, to me, is my second favorite Toy Story film. I really thought it was a great conclusion for the story of Woody and what kind of character he was, and the voice acting from all the voice actors in this film was incredible. The characters that obviously a lot of them take a backseat in this one, but a lot of the new characters really are fun and fun characters and nice new additions to the Toy Story legacy. So there you go. Number 2, I have Joker. Joker starring Joaquin Phoenix. This is a great, fascinating film. If you are a fan of these type of characters, this type of movie shows what these kind of characters could be. They could be character studies if you want them to. Of course, you're going to have to change a little bit here and there to not make it exactly like the Joker, because if you know the comics, Joker doesn't really have a backstory, or at least he's very unknown about where he comes from and who he is. But this movie gives us a backstory that I think is a little shady as well, and I think it works for this type of movie. I really liked it. I saw it both times. Yes, it is creepy, and yes, at the beginning you're kind of hoping this guy doesn't make the wrong turns, and then when he does, you're like, oh man, you went too far. But Joaquin Phoenix is mesmerizing. You gotta watch his performance. You gotta watch this movie just for his performance alone. He is terrific. Is he better than Heath Ledger? That's always debatable to me and unfair to really compare, because Heath Ledger was a supporting character where he can play the Joker the way the Joker's supposed to be played, opposite Batman. Well, this Joker is the leading character of this movie, and with that, you get a kind of different character, a little bit. You get shades of what the Joker is, but you peel back the layers of who he really is deep inside, layers that you've never gotten to explore in a movie with the Joker before, and could never do it if Batman was the star. Would I like to see a sequel? I would like to see Joaquin Phoenix again as this character more throughout a movie of his own. Maybe even seeing a movie of his eyes, seeing what Batman is like through his eyes, instead of a Batman movie looking at the Joker. Let's see a Joker movie looking at the Batman. But personally, I would be okay if they didn't make a sequel to this movie. I think it's great as a one-off type of film, and hopefully they keep it that way. Not everything needs a sequel, and I feel like if you're going to continue movies like this, give us other characters that deserve their own one-off type story like this. So, moving on to my number one movie of 2019, I have Avengers Endgame. No surprise here. If you heard me talk about Avengers Endgame before, I really love this movie. I watched it again multiple times since it came out on Blu-ray. I watched it 4 or 5 times in theaters. I really loved Avengers Endgame. I thought it was, if that was the last MCU movie, I would have been completely satisfied. Just like The Rise of Skywalker, though, there are some plot hole elements in the time travel stuff. But because the story is so good, because I love these characters, because I love the MCU from when it started with Iron Man 1 back in 2008, I really was with them throughout this entire journey. Even if you go back to Infinity War, because that's where that story actually starts. I felt this was a really fitting conclusion that shouldn't have worked because of all these characters from all these different movies, and yet it does. This movie is a celebration of the MCU and picks the right characters to focus on, the original 6 Avengers with a few others here and there, and great cameos. It really was a great experience in the theaters as well. If you've seen this in the theaters, you know how crazy the crowd was on those opening weeks. I don't think that's an experience we will feel again for a long time. And who knows, maybe in another 10 years Marvel can do it again. I would love it if they did, because, man, that feeling, I was hoping to get it from Star Wars. We didn't get it from Star Wars, but it's something that I think I'll hold dear, and that's what will make every time I rewatch these films just as memorable. So, with that being said, everybody, I hope you guys like this video. Please subscribe to my channel, especially if you are a huge fan of a lot of these movies I just talked about. And let's hope for some other great movies in 2020. It will be interesting to see what movies make my list next year. So until then, take care.